Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Virginia native Jay Jameson earned his dream job as a Hollywood staff writer on Superman and Lois on the CW, but that came to a halt with the writer's strike on May 2nd. He joined me to explain why he and his fellow members of the Writers Guild of America are protesting the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. We are being joined by Jay Jameson, who's one of the writers on CW's Superman and Lois, also on HBO Max, right?
Yes. Our seasons 1 and 2 are on HBO Max, and season 3 is Tuesdays at 8 p.m. on the CW.
Awesome. Yeah, our listeners might remember when you first landed the gig, we had you on and we did an interview, a local success story, because you grew up in Richmond and went to, AU and DC for master's film and all that. But I wanted to catch up again now that the writer strike's going on. I assume you are WGA member now as a part of the show. So what was it like, sort of landing your quote unquote dream job and then thinking you were, set for however many years and then now suddenly,
Yeah, no, it's definitely been it's been an interesting couple of weeks, even in the time leading up to the strike, because there was this kind of sense that there was this kind of impending thing on the horizon that we weren't sure if it was going to happen, but everyone was kind of sure it was going to happen. And then, when we got the word that the AMPTP, kind of walked away from negotiations without giving a serious offer or addressing a lot of our very serious demands or concerns. We got that word, and it was like, all right, let's gear up and let's get out there and start, fighting for what we believe we deserve.
Yeah, I remember when I texted you to ask if you wanted to do an interview, you said, I'm out picketing. I'll get back to you in a second. So what has picketing looked like on your end? Is it marching with a sign, or is what all does it involve?
Yeah, I mean, it's marching with the sign. You're out there around the studios, trying to make people aware of what our solidarity is, like what our demands are, that we're here to demand a fair deal to get them back to the negotiating table. It's shutting down productions, like Teamsters, IATSE are also unified with us. They won't cross picket lines, so it's getting out there to cause some disruption, because we need to, and it's depriving the studios of our work product. Like they are making billions of dollars on the backs of the foundation that we lay as writers. We start with a blank page, a kernel of an idea, and then it's up to us to create the document, to create the blueprint that then employs hundreds and thousands of other workers. Yeah. But you can't do any of that if you don't have a script.
Right.
And so we're just asking for a share in the profits, like these corporations, these companies, these studios have been making billions of dollars on streaming, on network television, and our ask is just a 2% of their profits. It's something that I don't think is unreasonable at all. But
it should be more, because the script is the most important thing. But to your point, at the very least, 2%. Come on.
Yeah.
So go into that a little bit more for our, because you're in the thick of it in LA, and it's like probably all around you and it's all consuming. But for folks in DC who maybe, follow entertainment just as entertainment or whatever, go a little more into like what demands, at least from my understanding, is it sort of like, for decades and decades, there's been Hollywood studio systems, and, writers have gone on strikes in past years to get certain royalties. But now that streaming has come in, is it all these tech companies, a lot of those things that were hard fought for so many years, there's nothing for that for streaming, right? Like you don't have any royalties based off of how many views something gets on Netflix.
It's and there are folks who are, in our guild or in our union, who are much more they have a much firmer grasp on how all of this works
Sure.
than I do. So I will express it the way that I understand it and the way I've
Perfect.
experienced it. And like some of the stories that I've heard from other folks. And then I will also Jason, I'll send you some great articles and whatnot
Sure.
to link to or reference later. But yeah, so basically it comes down to streaming. You know, a lot of these tech companies that have kind of come in and you know the Netflixes of the world and disrupt
Amazon, Apple, all that.
exactly disrupted the way that we kind of did things with the promise of streaming and on-demand video and all of that. Um, they disrupted, you know, the way that things have worked for 100 years. And basically, when we move to streaming, there's the residual, like we get some residuals from streaming, but it's not the same as what we would get from network or from releasing in theaters. There's a different metric. And part of, you know, what we're fighting for is transparency of data so that we can understand, you know, what shows are people watching. We can understand if there's a hit, that we share in the success of the hit. The way
Right.
it used to be, if a movie went to the theaters and it made hundreds of millions of dollars, the people who helped create that movie got to share in those profits.
Right.
But now, if a movie goes on just straight to a streamer and then gets billions of views or however whatever metric they want to use to describe if something's a hit or not, we get the same very small base of residuals, and
Right.
we don't know if what's successful and what's not.
Right.
And the same thing's happening with television, you know, on network television for reruns. If you know you wrote a script and it reran, you would get a percentage of that script fee again. And every
Right.
time reran, that percentage of the script fee would come in. It would get like a little bit less for each rerun, but it would be enough where between jobs, if you're looking for another job or if you're developing something or you know you're between rooms, it's enough to keep you going. It's enough to
Right.
create a middle class of writers where you're not struggling between your gigs. But
Mhm.
now when those same shows go online for streaming, it's again pennies on the dollar in terms of what you used to get from residuals. The other thing early on in the like kind of the streaming, the new streaming world, they would license because there was like one streamer. There was Netflix at first, and then there were a few, but Netflix would license these shows. So based on those licenses, the people who had those residual points or whatever would get
Mm.
some money from the licensing. But now, because all of these studios have vertical integration of their streamers,
Their own original content.
their own original content, there's no market for licensing. They're selling to themselves at a very low price. So the people who created it, even if they have points on the dollar or points on for the residuals, you could get less and less.
Mm.
So it's just a way of trying to see where the industry is going next and protect ourselves, protect our industry, and protect writing as a livelihood moving forward.
Very well said. That makes total sense because there's a new reality of streaming and everything that was fought for years and years of if something reruns in syndication or makes so many box office dollars at the movies, you would get a percentage of that. That makes sense. Anyone listening to this, that makes sense. You get paid for your work, right? But now it's just these behemoth tech companies that just are hoarding the money and there is no percentages you're getting. So
Exactly.
that makes sense. And I assume right now it's WGA, but I assume this is probably an overall giant earthquake of a reckoning that all the other guilds are like the Screen Actors Guild and DGA, and I assume all of these will probably are facing similar turmoil because of streaming, right?
I absolutely. I know the DGA. I'm also a member of the DGA, and
Congrats.
thank you. And they just started negotiating uh Wednesday of this week for their deal. And I know streaming residuals, data transparency, all of those things are very important aspects for them as well. I can't speak to SAG, not a member of SAG, but I would imagine that would also be uh, a point of contention for them. It's all a way to what the streamers are trying to do is they're trying to turn our profession into a gig economy.
Yeah.
They're trying to, one of the central points that the WGA we are fighting for is minimum sizes for writers' rooms, minimum staff sizes, and the reason we're pushing for that is to codify norms that have been eroded.
Right.
So, one of the things that these companies come in and do is without understanding how things are made, they're just looking at line items and
Sure.
they're looking for efficiencies, which I get. But the thing is you can't put numbers on the process of television making. And
Right.
then there are certain aspects of that process that are so important.
So let's talk about with your shows, Superman and Lois on the CW, like for example, like how many writers are in the writers' room? And you said you wanted to codify like a minimum number of writers. Like what would be like a good number of writers for a room?
Yeah, so it depends on the number of episodes, right?
Right.
What they have, what the WGA, what we have proposed in the WGA is a six for 6 episodes, one writer per episode.
Okay.
And then for each additional 2 episodes, one writer. I believe how that goes up to 12 once you get to like 22 episode orders as a minimum baseline.
Okay.
And the reason you want that is one, it allows the basis of training. It allows for writers to learn. Television writing is an apprenticeship type profession.
Right.
It's something where you go in as a staff writer and you are mentored and taught by the upper level writers until you move up the ranks yourself. So you get experience, you learn how to break story, you learn how to go to set and produce your episode, you learn how to take it to editing and do the mix, and then you move up and then you train those who come below you, come after you.
Mm-hmm.
And what the studios are trying to do is they're trying to eliminate that and have just one writer or mini rooms, which are these kind of pre-greenlight rooms where it's just 3 upper level writers breaking an entire season before they decide if they're going to greenlight the room for a much cheaper price. And they're trying to create a world where it's all freelance writers. You just come in, write a script, and then you're gone. You're not involved in production. You're not learning how to go on set. You're not learning how to become a showrunner. And so as a result of that, years from now, you will have eliminated all of the people and all the opportunities to learn how to become and run your own shows. Right. And you're also undercutting the quality of the product. Like you need writers' rooms. You need people with different voices. Even if there's one central voice of a writer, even if there's someone who is an auteur, who has a very specific voice, who knows the story they're telling, they benefit from having other people in the room with their life experiences and their points of view, sharing those things with them so that they can then filter that into their scripts. Right. Like even Aaron Sorkin had a writer's room on West Wing.
Sure.
Like, and they would sometimes get story by credit. They would, but like, even if he rewrote all the scripts, he benefited from having those writers there, and those writers benefited from learning from him.
And they go on to create other great shows.
They go on to create other shows.
Yeah.
Like Diplomat, which is a great show.
Where you're watching The Sopranos and you see like all the, for the lack of a better word, lower level writers suddenly go off and make all these, all these other great shows.
Exactly. So that is something that, we are definitely intent on fighting for, because that's just what the norm was. For years, it was just you would have writers' rooms. You would have a certain number of writers on rooms. And if you're producing 22 episodes, you'd have 10 to 12 writers at least, sometimes 14, 15, 16, sometimes other teams or whatever. And those people would learn and grow and build community and then go out and create their own shows. The boom of television that happened in the last few years was because of those writers' rooms and the knowledge that was learned in that process. And so we're fighting to codify that, because if we don't, what we've learned from the studios is they will take every shortcut and like every thing they can do, anything that's like not written into the contract, they will find a way around it.
For sure, for sure. And then, where do things stand? We talked a little before we hopped on here, but where do things stand specifically with Superman and Lois and the CW? The CW just can't. Which shows recently got canceled? It was Kung Fu and the Winchesters.
Kung Fu and the Winchesters got canceled. We're still waiting to hear. We're definitely one of the highest rated shows on the network, but we don't know if we fit into their new strategy. So we're waiting to hear if we're going to get a season 4. Really hope we do. If the CW doesn't pick us up, we're hoping that HBO Max will. I think we do pretty well on the platform. Once, like, when we air in the States, we're one of the top DC shows on the platform. When we air overseas, we're one of the top shows. At least that's what they tell us. That's just what, like, when they do top shows, the top show listing, we're always near the top. So we're hoping we'll get another season. We have some really fun things planned for a potential season 4. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I have an Hollywood Reporter article from, it was yesterday. Well, the day, as of the day we're recording this, yesterday, May 11th. That says the CW has just 3 shows left on which they still need to make a decision: Superman and Lois, and Gotham Knights, and All American Homecoming. So, and I think it says you guys, Superman and Lois, have the biggest audience of 1.2 million viewers over 7 days, compared to 675,000 for Gotham Knights. But again, your show is cost more, so yeah, we're gonna wait to see what happens with it. But that's crazy. So yeah, I guess, like, in the meantime, what are we doing? It's just, I guess, when did you guys stop work? What was the day? Like, what have you been up to in the meantime?
Yeah, I had some trips planned, like, already, like, before the thing. So I was traveling, doing, like, had to go to a wedding and all of that.
Right,
But yeah,
right.
we'll just be out on the picket lines, supporting via social media. If people want to support, there are some the hashtag WGA strong. It has some good options in terms of and some resources if you want to read up more on the things that we are fighting for. The other thing that we didn't mention is AI.
Oh yeah, all this is coming at the same time as all this AI news. I mean,
Yeah,
is that something that you all out there are really worried about?
it's one of those things where we went into it with the idea that we would just kind of say, hey, this is something that may be coming down the pike, so let's put a cut, like, let's
Yeah.
put a nail in it. Let's stop it at the head, and we can agree that AI is not something that we should be doing, right? And
Right.
then the
Very
AMPTP,
dangerous, slippery slope there.
yeah, and the AMPTP pushed back harder than we thought. So we said that, which made us think, oh, this is something that we should be fighting for. Like, this is something, like, they won't commit to not replacing us with robots right now, and that's something that we are now concerned. It's now become a point. So we are, and I think that's something else when you're talking about SAG and DGA that everyone should be concerned about, is the fact that there's a world where they want to just create content. Like, they're not concerned with making good shows or art or exploring the human experience. They just want to create content as a churn, at the cheapest price point possible. And so we're definitely fighting against that as a way to protect our space in our profession.
And what is that side even thinking? Like, that AI will, like, churn out, like, a first draft, and then they would hire human writers to rewrite it. A, you would lose so many jobs in doing that, but B, I mean, that sort of zaps any soul or creative spark out of, you can't just take something that was just hammered out by a computer first and punch it up a little. I mean, I guess you could, but it would lose that organic human element.
Absolutely. It would definitely lose that human element. There's so many interesting factors at play because, one aspect of them generating a first draft, say, or treatment through AI is that now they own the underlying IP, which is a lot of and the writer is even further away from ownership and creative ownership of the work, which means they're further away from the capital. They control less of the money. And it is cheaper. It's cheaper for them to just generate a first draft and have a writer do a rewrite than have the going through the process of creating, an original work through the creative process has worked for hundreds of years and hundreds of years before that, as we were writing books and telling stories around the campfire,
Yeah.
So it's all about them trying to increase their margins for shareholders versus generating good art.
Wow. The idea of a AI writing is something that we just a couple years ago we would have like laughed about. We'd have thrown that out as like a joke, an ultimate example of the ultimate capitalist, evil, I guess.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
That's why.
But I just and maybe just because I just reviewed it, the Air Jordan movie, Air, the Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, I loved it. There's a line in there where they're like, it's just a shoe until my son steps in it. That's what Viola Davis says.
Yeah.
And so she, Michael Jordan's mom negotiates Jordan to be the first player that gets a percentage of the shoe sales. Whereas before Nike and Converse and Adidas, they wouldn't give him a piece of that. And that's kind of like what we're talking about here. And by the way, and Matt Damon's character, they say at the end, went on to be a key advocate in this was 2014, maybe the NCAA players class action suit to prevent them from using their name and likeness. So it's all kind of the same as the WGA strike. If you ask me, it's like the people that actually do the work, the people that are dunking the basketball with their tongue out or writing a script, focusing, biting their lip, they should get a portion of it, not just the people at the top running the company. So, anyway, check out the movie. I loved it. I know you're a basketball guy.
I will. Yeah.
They don't show Jordan's face, it's kind of a cool choice, actually. It's just like a stand-in guy. It's awkward in one moment where you can tell the guy's like trying to stare at the back wall so you can't see his face. But overall, I like it because it makes it like more of a a mystique about him and who's going to play Jordan except Jordan. So
who's going to play Jordan?
Yeah, no,
it's
really
like
good.
An AI face replacement, which again,
yeah, exactly. What do they call them? Deep fakes or whatever.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's a crazy world we're in now. Anyway, well, thanks for doing this. I guess before we run, I guess we should say, like, people riding in the car listening to WTOP hearing this, like, how's the strike, if it keeps going on and on, how's it going to affect them as viewers? Because I would imagine right now we have enough shows in the can. You have Succession and Ted Lasso coming to a close, but like, how far out have they banked enough episodes before there will actually be a shortage of the next like, I know Severance is paused, and we already saw like Saturday Night Live and the late night talk shows and that kind of stuff. They're already gone. They're already back to reruns. So
gone. Yeah, I mean, I think these studios they do have a certain number of shows in the bank, like kind of leading out. But a lot of the legacy networks that we talk about, like the ABCs, the NBC, the CBS, they their schedules, like as soon as September, the fall schedules will be impacted. Their the writers' rooms for those shows would be starting up about now, like in the next weeks. Like Abbott Elementary, that writer's room is not going for next season. So definitely we'll start seeing things in the fall, and depending on how long it goes, some of these streamers and whatnot will start losing their content going like early next year. They'll start having to look for things to air. So, listen, this thing could end tomorrow. If the AMPTP comes with a reasonable offer and comes back to the negotiating table, none of us want to be striking. We all want to be working. We all want to be writing. That's why we got out here to do it. But we also understand that this is an existential threat, to our profession, and we need to hold the line here, because if it keeps eroding, there may not be any such thing as a WGA in the future. So we understand that we need to stand up now.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully for your sake and your fellow writers that it will, they will make an agreement soon. But who knows if it does, like you're saying, maybe it will take the, oh my God, panic freak out of the fall arriving and there's no new shows. Like maybe they will take that amount of fear to really shock them into being like, oh crap, we do need these creatives.
For sure. For sure.
So
I'll tell you
wow.
what, the DGA, if the DGA strikes as well, I think that might do it too. Like
Well,
that'll
it would shut everything down. If all the guild, I mean, they need all the guilds. So if they don't have them, then how they can't make anything. So
yeah, yeah.
well, thanks for being out there on the front lines for us, and hopefully you get back to work soon.
That's our hope.
All right, Jay Jameson, writer on Superman and Lois, native of Richmond, Virginia, and a graduate of American University, the master's film program there. So keep doing us proud.
I'll do my best.
All right, thanks, man.
Thank you.
If you'd like to know more about Jay's backstory, we spoke previously in 2021 when he first landed the gig on Superman and Lois. Hi, I'm WTOP entertainment editor Jason Fraley, and we are being joined by, why don't you just say your name real fast?
Jay Jameson.
And he is a staff writer on the new CW show, Superman and Lois, which debuts tonight, Tuesday night. Hey, thanks so much for doing this, man.
Oh, happy to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, full disclosure, Jay and I go back away. We were in AU film school together. But I've loved following your career, and I thought it'd be a good, local hometown hero, DC area guy, makes it big kind of a story that might inspire some other folks in their quest for Hollywood. So before we dive into, your whole backstory, let's start with Superman and Lois. Give us the basic premise of the show without any spoilers, because I don't want you getting in trouble.
For sure. Yes, I cannot get in trouble. But I also, I want people to enjoy, all of the twists and turns and reveals. So I would shy away from spoilers anyway. So the premise of this story is we have Superman and Lois. Superman has been kind of on the scene for a while. This is not an origin story. This is a Superman who has lived in the world and has been working for a while. He's married to Lois, and they have 2 teenage boys. And it's about his struggles as a father, Lois's struggles as a mother. But then, what is it like? The way we kind of pitch is like, it's kind of like Friday Night Lights, but Superman and Lois are Coach and Tammy, so it's about the family drama, but and from the kid's perspective, it's like, what do you do when you find out your parents are, you knew your mom is the world's greatest reporter, but what do you find out when your dad is Superman?
Right.
So it's about kind of the family aspect, but there will also be a lot of like really fun action superhero stuff. So it's a fun show.
Awesome. Now, did you were you a big comic book guy growing up? I mean, for me, for some reason, I wasn't ever really huge into Superman, but I love Batman. And of course, the X-Men, the TV show is the best. But what were you a big comic book guy?
Absolutely. There's even before I was a Superman guy from when I was a kid, like the old school cartoons, like the black and white,
right,
cartoons. I love those. There's a video somewhere like on VHS. So I don't know how we're going to find it or uncover it, but there's a video of me at 5 years old dressed as Superman singing "I've Been Working on the Railroad." Like that was part of my origin story.
That's amazing.
And then, I loved comic books. I also was a big X-Men guy. I think the thing that really, the thing that hooked me into comic books was Giant Size X-Men #1, Chris Claremont with Jim Lee, which, is awesome because Jim Lee now is like overseeing DC. So I was actually, I was on a big Zoom with him. I got very starstruck. We did like the table read for the show via Zoom, and Jim Lee was there, and I that was the most starstruck that I got. So it's I just grew up reading comics, just kind of engrossed in the world, and very fortunate to have this opportunity to tell this story.
Nice. So let's move chronologically then. So you graduated Hampton University in 2007. And then before you got to AU, didn't you intern on a Spike film?
I did. Right when I graduated from Hampton, I moved to New York. In fact, it was before I even walked. I finished my exams, and then the next day I flew up to New York to start working on a film that Spike Lee executive produced called "You're Nobody Till Somebody Kills You," which was a hip hop slasher film. Uh, it was a really interesting experience. I learned a lot.
Did you even meet him on set? I mean, if executive
He
producer, he's
he came to set a couple of times. It was one of those things where he was the executive producer, so he wasn't like hands on set every day, but it was a lot of like the Spike crew,
right.
working on it. So I got to kind of interact with a lot of like his producers and some of the people who worked on this film before. So yeah, so he came to set a couple of times, but not And I was, I was fresh out of college. I was like super intimidated every time he came to set. I was just an intern, so it's like,
right. Yeah. That's cool though. All right, and then then two big things happen for you. You get the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts Fellowship and a full scholarship to the MFA program at American University, where I met you. Talk about how that was such a big 1-2 punch for launching you.
Yeah, I at the time I was in Richmond. I was coaching basketball at my old high school, and I was editing like I was freelance editing, and I was just kind of was trying to figure out what the next move was. I was kind of in that space of I don't know what's next. I don't know where I'm going to go, and I don't know if I'm on the right path. And those two, getting into AU and getting the fellowship, were kind of the validation. It was like the green light where it's like, yes, you're on the right path. Follow your dream. Go after this. And so it really kind of set me. It's like, okay, film is a place that I can. Film is a thing that I can pursue and be good at. It's and so those were the two markers.
So when you graduate, you're from Richmond, obviously, but you're in the DC area. But I guess there's a little bit of a period where you're sort of in that bi-coastal limbo. Do I move to LA? Do I stay in this area? Talk about how you were able to find some work on some major Hollywood productions that came to Virginia.
Yeah, I mean, my goal has always been and continues to be to make film and television in Virginia and tell Virginia stories. And so a lot of my early career was, being based in Virginia, working on whatever came down the pipeline. I became very friendly with the people at the Virginia Film Office. So they would let me know, hey, this project's coming to town. Submit your resume to these people, and get in, and so that's how I was able to start working on. I was able to work on Lincoln as an office PA. I was able to work on Turn for AMC, and it was just, and I just kind of ingrained myself, in the Richmond film community, and that just opened up a lot of opportunities in Richmond. But what I eventually learned, and this was kind of the push and pull of wanting to make stuff in Virginia, is that if I really wanted to, bring things back, bring a TV show to Richmond, bring a decent sized movie to Richmond, I needed to go to LA. So I started, a couple of years ago, I started looking at, opportunities in LA so that I could, get into the television industry, start working my way up the ladder, of the writing staffs and producing and all of that, so that I could, build up the clout to bring stuff back. And so that's when I started the process of looking at making that move. And I was fortunate enough to meet Reggie Bythewood, who was in Richmond scouting to film his series Swagger. and we met for lunch, and I showed him one of my short films, and he, offered me a job to be his assistant on Swagger, which allowed me to kind of start to put down roots and a foundation in LA, while also maintaining my work in Richmond, because Swagger filmed in Richmond, I was able to. I was in LA for the writers' room, came back to Richmond for the pilot. Went back to LA for post, came back to Richmond to start filming the series. So it was kind of the perfect transition to LA for me.
Perfect. Couple things I want to unpack from what you said. I'll try to hit them one at a time. Before we get to the short film, which was Slave Cry, and then your whole RVA concept. Before that, real quick, did you actually get to bump into either Spielberg or Daniel Day-Lewis? Isn't there a funny Daniel Day-Lewis story?
There is. So when I worked on Lincoln, I went in and I interviewed to be an office PA, and they hired me after the interview. But then the next day they were like, actually, we have another possible role for you. We want you to interview with Daniel to be his personal assistant in Richmond, his local assistant. I was like, sure, absolutely. And so I go in the next day, he was coming in to do costume fittings. This was like in pre-production. He was looking at the sets and doing costume fittings and checking out houses for him to live in. And so I went in, and I met with Daniel Day-Lewis, and we had like a really great 45-minute conversation about my background, my hopes, like what I was interested in, like where I hoped my career would go. He talked a lot about his experiences with like the independent film scene, like in London and all of this stuff. And then towards the end, he kind of looks at me and he takes a deep breath and he's like, he's like, Jay, how this is a weird question, but how tall are you? And I'm pretty tall. I'm 6'5". And so I told him I was 6'5" and some change, depending on the day. And he was like, yeah, I'm really sorry but like when I was studying about Lincoln and preparing for this role, one of the things that I noticed, that one of the things I found out that was really interesting is that Lincoln never met anyone who was taller than him. And I feel like if I were around you every day, I wouldn't feel tall.
You got method acted out of the.
I got method acted out of the job, and he was great. Like, he was really great. It's like, he didn't know I already had an offer to work on the movie. So he was like, I really hope they find something for you. And I'm really sorry about this. And like, I know it's strange. And I'm like, no, man, like you do you, like, it's like, I get it. Like whatever
process,
whatever process you need to, but I was driving home and I called my mom and I was like, yeah, Mom, like I couldn't, I'm too tall for and Mom was like, what? I'm gonna drive down. I was like, Mom, you cannot come down here and threaten Daniel Day-Lewis. Like you can't do it. But it was great. Like I saw him a couple other times, like on set. He was like super happy that I got a job. So, and
he remembered you when you saw him again.
He remembered, yeah. Like I saw, like there was one point where he was, like we'd been working for a bit, and everyone was talking about like, he had transformed into Lincoln. Everyone was talking about how much he looked like Lincoln, and I was like, all right, well, I've got to see this in person. So I positioned myself. I had like a little break, and I positioned myself between the trailers and set. I made sure I was sitting down because I didn't want to throw him off, and he was walking by, and I mean, you've all seen the film. Like he looks just like the paintings of like he just kind of embodied this person. He's just kind of ambling by, and he looks over and he sees me, and he cracks a smile. He's like, "What's up, Jay?" I was like, "Oh snap!" Like Abraham Lincoln just said, "What's up" to me. That's really cool.
He remembered. You probably made an impression. He probably felt bad about.
Right? No, yeah. So it was. But no, it was a great experience for sure. Because I mean, it was to see a film of that magnitude and how it was put together, kind of from the top down. Like that was one of the benefits of actually being the office PA. It was like I got to see how all of the departments work together and interacted with each other. It was really a great opportunity out of film school.
That is really, really cool. And then not to mention Turn. But okay, so then real quick before we get to Slave Cry, because I know that's sort of more of the train in motion to where we are now. But real quick, memories of I know your first feature film Try. I believe you came into TOP when that was playing in Fairfax at that the Virginia Film Fest, what was it called? Northern Virginia.
It was the Northern Virginia Film Festival.
Right, at the Angelica. Yeah. Memories of that, take things you took away, I'm sure you pulled together a lot of a crazy shoot in a short amount of time, from what I recall.
Yes, that was quite an experience. I was just coming off of working on Turn as a visual effects assistant, and Ted Adams, shout out to Ted Adams. He was putting together this film, and he was looking for a director, and our good friend Russell Williams,
Russell
from AU, kind of sent Ted my thesis film. Ted responded to it, went in for a meeting. Ted hired me, and 6 weeks later we were filming, which is like the craziest prep time for a feature film ever. It was one of those things where, I didn't have time to be intimidated or scared, because I just had to get the work. Like that was one of the benefits of it being like, of the prep time being so short. It was like we just had to get the thing made. We had to get the thing in the can, get it done. And then afterwards I could look back and be like, that was crazy. Like that was that turnaround and what we were able to accomplish. But I mean, it was just a testament to, what the producers put in, like what the crew put in. We had a phenomenal crew. We had great actors. We made a film that we were really proud of. A film that is positive and showcases like such a wonderful community of triathletes. And it's something that still to this day, like a lot of people are finding. It's on Amazon. And like around the world, like random people will find the film and take something from it. So, for me, it was like kind of my second MFA in film. This was my PhD in film. It was like I was like, there's film school, and then there's making your first feature. Yeah. It's like there's so many things that you just have to figure out as you're going and learning. But yeah, I mean, it was just a great experience, and we made a film that I was really proud of.
Awesome. All right, so that sort of brings us now to Slave Cry / RVA, because isn't Slave Cry sort of like a proof of concept? Yeah. So tell our listeners, remind us what the concept of RVA is and how that sort of sparked Slave Cry.
Yeah. So RVA is a pilot about Richmond, Virginia, and it's basically like the premise is young Black millennials growing up in the former capital of the Confederacy. And it was sparked by the fact that like I didn't see a lot of people with my specific experience on television. Like at least at the time that I originally wrote the pilot. Like since then there have been a lot more portrayals that are closer to things that I've experienced. But like growing up, like my lived experience is not The Wire. Like that's not growing up. Like I couldn't tell you. I didn't know where to buy drugs. You know what I'm saying? Like I grew up in the suburbs.
That wasn't your life. Yeah,
that wasn't my life. But like the people that I grew up with, a lot of my friends like grew up to be, one of my friends runs an ER department in Milwaukee. One of my friends helped develop the Kinect for Xbox and used to put on video game tournaments that would sell out the Staples Center. One of my friends became a clerk for the Supreme Court. So it was like I wanted to write a pilot that was about the struggles of those types of people. Like it was a comedy dramedy pilot about those types of folks who are like trying to figure their stuff out, and the main character in RVA is a young Black actress who wants to work in Richmond, but the only thing they film are period pieces. And I wrote that was inspired by my experiences working on Lincoln and Turn, which were great experiences, but because of the nature of the storytelling, the only roles available to Black actors were slaves. And my sister, who's an actor, and she was going to school when I wrote the first version of the pilot. I wanted to write a role for her, so it was like inspired by her and by my experiences. And so that pilot, after I finished my film Try, that pilot got into the Nantucket Screenwriters Colony, which is this amazing program where they fly you, it's all expenses paid. You go to his cabin in Nantucket and workshop your writing with mentors and 3 other comedy writers for 2.5, 3 weeks. And so coming out of that program, I had this polished pilot of this project, and I went to LA and started having meetings, and they were mostly good, but like a lot of my general meetings, it was clear that they hadn't read the pilot, and so it's very frustrating, it's like, and they were very nice, but it was like they were taking the meetings as favors to friends, and they just hadn't gotten around to reading the pilot. So, that experience coupled with the fact that, I wanted to get back on set. I'm a writer, but I also direct, and so I wanted to get back on set, and I wanted to apply a lot of the things that I learned from making Try. So I took the pilot and I pulled the storyline of the Black actor out and made that into a self-contained short film that turned into Slave Cry. And so, got together a crew, raised some money, and, filmed that with my sister. And that, and now that film has played in the Virginia Film Festival, won the Commonwealth Award there, and is about to play in the Pan-African Film Festival, which is I think it runs March 1st through March 14th.
Awesome. I love that it still has life. Like it's still getting shown in festivals. That's awesome.
It's been, this is probably the tail end of the festival run, but it definitely went a lot longer than I anticipated it would.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a great little short, so everyone check it out. All right, cool. Well, I guess that sort of brings us a little closer to present day then, when you submit, not just submit, but you win. Was it the WE Screenplay competition?
Yeah, the WE Screenplay Diverse Voices screenplay competition.
Okay, it's called The American Way, which is obviously a play on Superman. So, but then explain how they gave you a call or a text or whatever it was to offer you a staff writing gig.
Yeah, so The American Way kind of like it's interesting because a lot of the times like these staffing opportunities come as like through roundabout relationships and networking opportunities. Years ago I met this writer, James Stodderow, who at the time was a writer and executive producer on the Vampire Diaries, but has been working since then. He worked on Gotham and on Krypton but now he's working on a Batwoman, and he started circulating The American Way kind of around his friends, who we worked with before, kind of in the Warner Brothers, camp, and it made its way to Todd Helbing, who is the showrunner of Superman and Lois, and Todd called me up. At the time I was still working on Swagger, so I was in Richmond actually. So they contacted me to do an interview, and I was like, I'm on location, but like, can we do a Zoom? Can we do a phone call? It's like, yeah. So I thought it was going to be a Zoom, and he just called me. And so we had like a great phone conversation, about, the type of stories I like to tell. He kind of told me, his vision for what Superman and Lois was going to be, which, I immediately bought into. It was just like, it just came from a place that was so positive, so relatable. I think one of my favorite, ways of approaching Superman is, it's like, yeah, you want the action, you want, the excitement, but also, the thing that separates Superman is, or the thing that makes Superman interesting to me is when he's faced with a problem that he can't punch. It's like, it is like figuring out how to balance being Superman and being a dad is just such an interesting place to be, and like just the point of view and the way the worldview that we were approaching it with was great. And then the room itself, we started the room. Well, so I'll get into that. So I interviewed with Todd, and then a couple of weeks later, I get we end the phone call. He's like, do you have a lawyer? Do you have reps? What's your, and at the time I didn't have reps. And my lawyer is like one of my friends from college, one of my friends from Hampton, Alandis Brassel. And so I gave him Alandis's contact info. And then, I went back to work on Swagger, and came back to LA. We were working, I was just kind of, as far as I knew, I was just gonna keep working on Swagger. And then out of the blue, Alandis texted me. He's like, "You got an offer, bro." And I was just like, "What?" Like it was like the funniest text message. It just shocked me. It was just one of those things where it's like you get this text that changed your life, and you're, and I didn't believe him at first. I was like, "You need to forward me the email. You need to,
give me proof."
Yeah, I need proof. I need to know this isn't a prank. And yeah, and like it was this amazing ecstatic moment of, wow, like, like I said before, 5-year-old Jay, dressed up as Superman, multiple Halloweens, and for that kid to be able to, kind of step in the room and help tell stories, and especially now, and like that's the thing, that was like when we started the room maybe 3 weeks before the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
And then when we moved into the Zoom writers room, that like that room was, it was what allowed me to make it through. It was like being in the room with those wonderful people telling hopeful, positive stories, and just really like living in this other world. Like that was the thing that I held on to, and that's the thing that hopefully people can get out of this narrative, is like just telling stories that excavate the positivity in humanity, and that celebrate that. And that's, I can't wait for people to see it. I can't wait for people to see how the narrative unfolds, because it's we have a lot of there's going to be a lot of like really fun stories.
Awesome. So obviously you're being in the writer's room, or I guess writer's rooms on Zoom, various rooms. You obviously had, you're with a bunch of writers, you're having a little input on all the episodes, but did they give you a specific episode that you get to head up?
Yeah. So I got I'm writing episode 7, so that's where I wrote episode 7. But yeah, so we all have input on all of the stories. We break it together, but then we're each given our specific scripts.
Okay, cool. Well, then just bringing it full circle, you kind of mentioned it a second ago, but how freaking exciting is it to be writing? You were a kid who grew up watching Superman, wearing t-shirts and stuff, to now you're officially once this thing hits tonight, Tuesday night, you're going to be official part of the Superman canon forever. Like centuries from now, your work will be part of the canon.
It's surreal. Like it really is. I have to remind myself and pinch myself every now and again. Like yesterday they had in the LA Times, they had this insert that was the Daily Planet. Like as part of like the advertisement with like,
Nice.
byline by Lois Lane and all. And I just went, I had to pick up like 3 copies, I had to find a newsstand and buy, like, grab that for the archives. Like just being kind of in conversation with this iconic character and all of the writers and creatives who have contributed to the canon, and being able to just kind of add my little bit to it. Like it's funny because a lot of people ask of writers previously, what is your favorite, who is your Superman? Like, what is your favorite iteration of Superman? Is it the old cartoons? Is it Christopher Reeves? Is it, Brandon Routh? Is it, what is it Smallville?
Henry Cavill, yeah.
Right. Like, what is your,
right.
And mine has always kind of been this amalgamation that's lived in my head. It's a little bit of this, it's a little bit of, a little bit of that. And now it's the one that we're creating. It's like now I get to, kind of put forward like my vision along with like my fellow writers, like together collectively we get to put forward like this is who we think Superman is. And again, like especially in this time, it's really great, to be able to kind of live in that world and live in a space full of like hope and positivity.
Yeah, well, thanks for giving all of us something to look forward to, Superman. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Our theme music is Scott Buckley's Clarion. Remember to give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time.